I have the ingredients on hand to brew the smoked rot beer that Chris Colby and I formulated on this past week's show. I'm going to be fermenting it with the new seasonal lager yeast from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast, L26 Pilgrimage. Pilgrimage produces a clean fermentation and accentuates malt profile to create balanced and nuanced lagers. And since this is a small batch, I'm not going to make a starter. I'm sure that those 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package of Imperial will get the job done. So no need to dust off the stir plate. Ask your local homebrew store about L26 Pilgrimage from Imperial Yeast and check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. It's imperialyeast.com. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, September 28th. 2023. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, it's time for Steve Wilkes and me to sit on the other side of the microphone. Garrett Freeman from Made Mead invited us on his video podcast on YouTube. You'll hear a selection of clips from that interview in this week's show, where Steve and I sample some delicious meads from Garrett from Made Mead and get some tips on how they were made. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters this week will get to see our next video 2 weeks before the general public. It's my Red Honey IPA. I'll be on vacation next week, so you won't hear this show next week. And I'll make the public post of the video when I get back from vacation. How many jokes can Steve and I come up with based on the Battle of Hastings? Well, unless you're a financial supporter, you'll have to wait a couple of weeks to find out. Supporters will get to see the early release of that video along with the recipe and a behind-the-scenes video this Friday. Adam Ross from Twin Span Brewing wrote me a note saying he has brewed the beer that we came up with in the Mash Your Luck episode. If you'll remember, I believe we came up with a moderate gravity, high bitterness, golden English lager. I'm not going to spoil the details of the brew, but Adam says he's going to put it on tap at Twin Span when it's ready. I'm very excited about that. A collaborative beer, that we did together is going to go on sale to the public. Really looking forward to getting a sample of that and tasting it myself. Listener Steve from Roswell sent me a picture of a birthday present he got recently from his wife, a steam juicer. Man, we really should have set up an affiliate link for the steam juicers. Happy birthday, Steve. Let us know what you juice first and what you brew with it. Or, if you put it in a pie or whatever you do with the juice, let us know. Listener Bill writes in saying if you like, quote-unquote, malort, you got to try chartreuse. Probably much more on the spice than the botanicals. Hard to find. Available in 2 strengths, blue and green. See if you can find it around you. Bill says, I've had it in both versions in Northern Virginia and the lower strength in Opelika, Alabama, which he says is a beer desert. Very much a sipper and only in special circumstances. I looked up the details on chartreuse, and it supposedly has 130 herbs and plants and such. Seems like a lot. Our good friend Barry Cranston from Down Under wrote after hearing Chris and me talk about smoked beers. Barry says, just listen to your show about Rauch beer. I brew the traditional Rauch beer at least twice a year. I've attached my recipe for your interest. I've been fortunate to win/place with this beer over the years, including 2017 New South Wales State Home Brewing Championship Best of Show with a score of 88.5 out of 100. Wow. That's just showing off, Barry. Barry sent a photo of his beer and a beer of his photo next to the original Bamberg version. As I said up top, I'm looking forward to brewing my smoked beer, the 2-gallon smoked Ralt beer that Chris Colby of Beer and Gardening Journal and I came up with. I got the ingredients for that beer from our good friends and sponsors Desiree and Dave of HighGravityBrew.com. The Build Your Own Beer page on HighGravityBrew.com is super easy to use. You essentially start a bundle for each beer that you want to order, so the grains can be, combined into one bag, milled or unmilled, your preference. You can also order extract beers too, by the way, in a similar fashion. And once you choose whether you want extract or all grain, and then on all grain, whether you want it milled or not, you just scroll down the page and look at all the various ingredients, and your order total is updated at the bottom of the window. And of course, while you're on HighGravityBrew.com, you can check out all the electric brewing systems and controllers designed to take the pain out of propane. Along with High Gravity's Warthog brand of equipment, you can also check out the Brewzilla lineup of gear as well, if that's more your style. If you use the code EBC75BB, you can save $75 off your Warthog gear purchase. Head on over to HighGravityBrew.com and show Desiree and Dave some love and thank them for their continued support of this show. That's at family-owned and operated HighGravityBrew.com. That's HighGravityBrew.com. Okay, this was a fun conversation. Steve, Garrett, and I talked for well over an hour, so there'll be a lot of stuff in the man-made mead version that you won't hear here when it's posted on YouTube in a couple of weeks. On this edit of the interview, I concentrated mostly on tasting the delicious meads that Garrett shared with us.
Speaking of, I guess, liquid food, I did share some liquid food with y'all in the form of mead. And I figure we can I sent a couple things, and I figure we got to burn through them. So whatever you want to choose first, I'll let you guys pick your poison, and I'll explain how we got here.
Steve, you want to go first, or you want me to pick first?
Well, I was going to say I'm not sure if we have the exact same thing. I think we do.
We got three of the same thing.
Cucumber lemon.
Yeah, I've got that one. Okay.
I was going to say, why don't we do that one first, just because I think it's going to be the lightest.
Okay.
And move from light flavors to heavier flavors. I bet would be.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so this is I'll explain as you guys are opening and everything. So this is I've been recipe testing some cucumber mead options. I've always thought it'd be an interesting flavor profile. And I really wanted to reach into that, like you walk into a spa or somewhere and they have that big container of water and they've thrown cucumbers in. I wanted to kind of achieve that sort of profile. So I hope it's transferred well, but it is honey and some cucumbers, obviously. A little bit of lemon juice, not as much as I think I should have put in there, but it's supposed to be just like a 4% easy drinker. It's really not too hard to make. I've been in my testing. I've been trying to avoid making it taste like pickles. So if it tastes like pickles, then I've not achieved what I wanted. And oddly enough, the way I think I've avoided that has been to introduce cucumbers in a secondary stage and to introduce them in a cold chamber. So go ahead and get the mead, 40, 50 degrees, and then add those in. And it's more of like a cold steeping. And it's interesting, a different method than I had thought I would have to do, honestly.
And is that post or pre-stabilizing? In other words,
right. I think it was post. But I don't think there's not really any sugar in that cucumber. I definitely did stabilize it to back sweeten. But I don't remember in this circumstance. I don't remember. I probably did stabilize it now that I think about it. I normally do. That's kind of my default. If I'm going to back sweeten ahead, I'm just going to go ahead and pre-stabilize it ahead of time.
Well, whatever you did, it worked. I mean, the character of the cucumber is nice and fresh. It's not like a pickle at all. You taste it and it's like, oh, yep, because there's honey in there as well. It's like a sweet cucumber. which is, opposite of what we're used to thinking about pickles. But it's a nice. It was carbonated as well. Did you say it was stabilized? Did you force carbonate it?
Yep, it's been in a keg. I still have a little bit over there. Actually, I forgot I had some, but yeah, I force carbed 5-gallon keg, and then I canned some up to ship out to people. And
it's very good.
It's really, really good. All these youngsters with their canning equipment, Steve. I feel.
I know, right?
I'm
jealous.
I'm envious. Yeah, for sure. No, it's. So, what kind of honey did you use?
This was. I could probably find. Let me look exactly. I think in my testing, I probably just went and bought some cheaper honey. This is going to be kind of taboo, but I recently, in a lot of my big recipes, I use, like, when you walk into Walmart, that pure and simple 5-pound. If I'm doing something that's fruited or is, I'm not really totally trying to highlight the honey, I'll use something like that. And so people are probably going to revolt and unsubscribe from my channel now, but
no,
let them.
No, don't waste your money on something that's going to be, that's going to be hidden. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know nothing, but if you were to spend a lot of money on a fancy honey, like I saw your maybe one of your recent videos, you had like a radish honey. You don't want to spend a lot of money on a fancy honey that you're going to cover up with a fruit flavor or something like that. If it's a good quality honey, I mean, there are bad honeys out there that aren't really honey, as I understand. They're mostly like sugar or something. It's as long as it is a proper honey product, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about.
Mm-hmm. I don't either. I always look for that little, honeybee sign, the little guarantee of this is pure honey. I don't know how truthful that is. I mean, you could lie, but I at least look for that. And I agree with you. I generally get, for a melomel, something like this, I just use a big box quality honey, as far as I can tell. And like James said, I don't see the point in spending 3 times the amount of money on honey that's going to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reiterating what you said, but I completely agree with that.
This is it says it's 4%, which is really nice. It's extremely drinkable and sessionable. Do you remember or do you have do you have like a sliding scale when you are looking at, say, a low gravity mead versus a higher, or low alcohol mead versus a higher alcohol mead? Is there a sliding scale on how much you back sweeten? I mean, does this have like a lower finishing gravity after the back sweetening than you would, say, a bigger mead? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think it really depends on what I'm trying to push. Like, I have a couple that my apple cinnamon, which I think I sent you guys a can of.
Yeah.
That one I have, like, I always try to finish between like 10:15 and 10:20, and it's just that sweet spot where I found out, it really highlights the apples, and then that contrasts the cinnamon. This one was more of like I just kind of kept adding honey until I felt like I had enough honey character that wasn't going to overshadow this cucumber side. So I don't really have like a strict, like, well, I'm shooting for 10:15 or 10:20 unless I've done the recipe a bunch. Most of the time it's just kind of like, what do I think this needs? And often it's I would say that I probably do land between 10:10 and 10:20 as my final gravity, like, more often than not. Although recently I've been pushing it more. I don't know how much commercial mead you guys have had, but a
Money.
new trend is to really end with a sweet mead. Sometimes like 1060, 1070, 1080 as your final gravity. And it is, I'm not trying to go that way because that is expensive and kind of wild, in my opinion. But I do see the merit when you're making something that's like a tart mellow of sorts. And you're like, well, I got to contrast this cranberry that I've added. I got to have a lot of sweetness here to, match what I've done. But yeah, 10:10 to 10:20 is probably my average, and sometimes above, I would say.
Did you say you put lemon juice in there as well?
A little bit, not enough. I realized that, again, this is still
I was going to say I get it. I mean, in addition to the cucumber character, there's a sweetness in there as well, but then there's also a balance of acidity in there that really, it really rounds it out to where it's not flabby. I think it's just right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, it's very tasty.
It's a lot of fun. Cucumber is one of those things that I've thought about for years, and it's on my list of like ones to make. The other flavor profile somebody mentioned that was like, you should add some basil in that. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so I don't really know. I haven't done much testing with that yet, but there might be a point where I try some of that. So it's kind of fun. Cucumber is one of those that's polarizing, though. People are either like, I love it, or, oh my gosh, do not give me, I hate cucumber.
I wonder, even though you're not trying for pickle, I wonder if you put some dill in there, whether that would be a fun addition. Even, the pickle, you have the sourness in there as well, but I just wonder if and I'm not saying that this needs it, but this would be another variation. If you put some dill in there, whether that would add just a little bit of complementary character to it.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's fine the way it is. I think it's really good.
So
Nice
was
first choice.
a little bit inspired by a guy named Carvin Wilson, who does a lot of stuff with mead. And he has a cucumber bean recipe that uses 20 pounds of cucumber in a 5-gallon batch. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go that heavy because that's a lot of cucumber.
A bunch of cucumber.
So this was a 5-gallon batch, and I used 5 pounds. And it was about, a pound. Basically, it turned out to be like one large cucumber per gallon. And I feel like it is very cucumber heavy so I can't imagine going 4 times that.
I can't either. That to me sounds not very good. So I won't dismiss this other fella's mead because it's probably really good, but that just sounds way over the top to me. I'm curious, did you use did you peel the cucumbers or leave them with the skins on?
Yes. So this is my third iteration. First one, I didn't do any peeling, and it was like, I mean, you got, not I want to say bitterness, but there was some real tannin coming from that skin that I was like, it was weird. I couldn't get over it. And so I peeled the next iteration of it, and I was like, oh, this is much better. And then I did the whole cold steeping thing, and I was like, that's even better. So, because I did a side-by-side. I did a cold steep and then a room temp steep at the same time, tasted them, and the room temp had, I don't know, it had something about it that was a little bit funky to me. And so that's when I decided to do the cold steeping instead. Do you guys want to open up another one, or do we want to take a beat?
Sure.
We can
warmed up.
We can open up another one. This train is headed down the tracks. Now, do you want to
open next?
Do you want to do the apple cinnamon next?
Sure. Yeah, it's in my hand.
The caption says, "I swear it's not applesauce."
Yeah,
6% ABV.
This is one I make a lot of. I just this year alone, I probably brewed 30 gallons of it.
Oh my!
Wow.
Given away 30 of it so far, and it's just one I feel like I've got down. I have a video on it, so there's a way people, if they want to make it, I've literally just tried to give out the secret recipe, so to speak, for what's happening. But it's it's apple juice, and then of course honey, and eventually, my little tips in the video are to let it ferment through primary on those things, stabilize it, and then add a medley of apples to get a different flavor combo from the apples.
Is that a metric medley or a?
I have a couple I like. I end up using sweet apples like Fuji, Gala, and Pink Lady. Like those are my favorite ones, but they're all in that sweet category. They don't really have any tartness. And then I come back and add some cinnamon sticks in after a couple weeks, and honey, carbonate it, and that's it. Add some citric acid, make it a little bright.
Wow,
that's what you got right there.
Well, it's crystal clear.
Very nice.
It's a little effervescent.
It's like a fun one.
It's like grown-up Apple Jacks.
Yeah. You
remember Apple Jacks from, it's not as sweet and, it's not Apple Jacks. But it reminds me of that, that cinnamon toasty Apple Jacks, the cinnamon and the apple and it's again, really nice and very, very, I say it a lot, but I think it has to be said. It's very, very clean. I mean, there's no defects in it. I mean, that's the first hurdle you got to get over. Is if you give an experienced beer or cider or mead or whatever taster or something, and they catch something right off, it's like it's hard to get past that. But there's none of that in this. It's really, really good.
Thank you.
I'm curious what yeast that you used.
Well, this will be a fun one. I used the K1B1116. I have kind of always gone to that one, and I know it's more champagne strength, but something about it. It always does well with this specific recipe. So, which is surprising. I didn't think it would, and I used it. I spent a long time trying to develop an apple mead recipe. And what I like about this one is if you take away the cinnamon and keep the same process, it's basically just a very good alcoholic apple juice is what it tastes like. So it's kind of like you could go summer side, when it's hot, and then you could also flip it for the winter, add some cinnamon in.
Well, I guess it's technically a sizer, but the apple character is very fresh, and it's almost more appley than cider by itself. I don't know if that's possible, but it tastes more like apples than just straight apple cider to me.
When you did you back sweeten it? And if you back sweetened it, did you back sweeten it with honey or with apple juice?
Honey mostly, and then I sometimes will take, if I feel like the apple character isn't quite there, I'll put like one of those 8-ounce cans of concentrate in to a 5-gallon batch and just give it a little bit more. On top of that, I've been trying to commercialize this recipe and make it to where it's more viable. If it were to go commercial at some point, it's a little bit tough to do 3 different kinds of apples and, per gallon to have 3 pounds of each apple and blah, blah, blah. Like it turns into quite the mess. So I've been trying to break things down. I've been using more concentrates. It's kind of the fun out of it, honestly. A lot of homebrewing is just like, I like to be a little bit MacGyver-ish and like just start grabbing things and like throw it in and see what happens. But obviously at a commercial scale, you can't really be MacGyver.
No.
So,
yeah. It's, I mean, people say, "Oh, and isn't homebrewing a lot of work?" Well, yeah, but that's kind of so is knitting. But people don't. You can buy a sweater, but
that's golf.
It's no fun. Oh well, yeah. I was never a golfer.
That's why it's a lot of work.
But this is, if you compare this, say, to, a commercial, what passes as a commercial mass-produced, say, alcoholic cider today, that's just headache juice, in my opinion, because it tastes artificial. It tastes like it's just nothing but sugar. I think that what the honey brings to this is kind of a natural. And maybe it's my brain playing tricks on me, but maybe, the honey brings kind of a more natural sweetness, to the apples, where it's not just, like a table sugar kind of sweetness. It's a more rounded, and again, you could probably do that. I don't know if you did, but you could probably do this with, your grocery store honey and be just fine.
it actually is. That's the pure and simple honey right there. It's pretty easy. What I like about the recipe is I've got it down to where, most of the time you're like taking gravity readings and stuff. This recipe is one where I've done enough where I just dump it all together and I'm like, I know my starting gravity is 1050 and I walk away. And, it doesn't hurt to double check, but it's one of those where I'm like, okay, I've got this pretty well down at this point.
Shall we try the third shared mead? That's a blueberry mead. And this is
so this one
7%.
Yep. So this is one I make a lot as well. It's pretty easy. You mentioned long brew days in beer. This one's a pretty easy one. The hardest part is the day before. I'll take what do I use? About 2 pounds of blueberries per gallon for these normally, or 1.5 maybe, and throw in some pectic enzyme. Let it set for 24 hours, and I normally just let it set at room temp. Let that pectic enzyme 24, 48 hours of just setting. And then I take all my honey, take all my water, stick my drill in and blend it up as much as I possibly can. and throw in some 71B, I think is my main one I use here.
Very good.
Ferments, stabilize, and then back sweeten with honey. And that's about it.
So everything together in the primary then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And it's crystal clear, so those enzymes did their job.
Yeah.
It's got a great nose on it. It smells like fruit.
It's a fun one. I enjoy it quite a bit, and it's all year round. That's what I like about blueberries. Blueberries are like probably my favorite fruit. It's like you can do it anytime.
Now, do you use the fresh, or is there? Have you tried the frozen?
I'm pretty much all frozen at this point because fresh gets really expensive. I mean, I can rarely find fresh for like a regular price that I'm willing to pay. But I can go to Sam's or Costco or somewhere and get 4 pounds for still like 10 or $11. You know, it's when you're buying a lot of fruit, it can be a bunch, but you know, 8 pounds of fruit for a 10 or a 5-gallon batch is not that bad. That's it.
I used a steam juicer, and here we go on the steam juicer. For those who are familiar with us, but I used a steam juicer to juice some frozen blackberries for a beer, maybe was it a blackberry cream? What was it? Anyway, and it worked really well for the frozen fruit there. I used it on some frozen peaches, and it didn't work out well. Those were not good. So I think, you know, it probably depends on the fruit as to whether, you know, frozen is good enough or not. But these are certainly good. I mean, I get a fresh blueberry flavor out of this.
Well, and you have to. I feel like the challenge there is like the skins. I think that's what really helps this one, especially. It's 7% carbonated, so it should be carbonated. You know, it's going to have a little bit of lift from that, but it can still feel thin. And so you don't. That's what I don't like about low ABV meads is if you really don't give them any carbonation, it's just a watery mess. And so that adds a little bit of that tannin to it, and it's really not that hard to leave them on too, in my opinion. But I've wanted to try the steam juicer since I saw your video. That looked like a fun experiment, honestly.
I'm drinking the Pina Colada mead. I'm about to. So I don't like getting caught in the rain. But
I don't either.
This one's a little bit of a. Well, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make a Pina Colada mead. And first of all, coconut is so hard to use in brewing. I don't know if you've done much with it, but it is not a friendly thing to avoid oils. So that you used a medley of things between coconut chips and I eventually just gave up and stopped trying to add more coconut chips because it got kind of crazy and ended up adding some that Malibu. Is it Malibu? Whatever the white bottle rum is. It's the coconut.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that, and then of course pineapple in there. And carbonated because I feel like it's just I like these lower strength things because you can have more than one. That's the big thing for me is sometimes one bottle of mead when it's 14% and you're like I'm done for the night. You know, if I can have 2 pints of something that's pretty good to me. So
it's delicious. I don't have a lot of experience with rum drinks because I had one bad experience with rum drinks when I was in college. So since then, but I like it. I don't, you know, I get it. I'm averse to rum, but this is good. And mead seems to lend itself to, you know, mimicking cocktails as well. Was it an old fashioned that Tim Lieber shared with us? He cloned an old fashioned.
Oh, gosh.
He cloned a cocktail with me. Yeah, and it was really, really good. And this is as well. It's I'm scared that I'm by myself here giving tasting notes without Steve to back me up on this one because it's smooth and
tastes like honey and
it tastes like heartache. No, no, it's good. It's good. I get the components. I get the piña, the pineapple, and maybe it's a good thing I don't get a lot of the rum.
It wasn't really meant to add rum flavor. It was more to get that. I was trying to get coconut, without adding a flavoring. I used to be unofficially, I think the mead rep for Amaretti for a long time because we just had a friendship and they just kept sending me stuff. And so I used to use these flavorings for a long time. Nothing wrong with them by any means, but when you're making YouTube videos and teaching people how to do stuff, they're like not too happy when you're like, go buy this flavoring and add it in. They want to do it more naturally. So I kind of moved away from those, and coconut's just hard. I'd be curious to see how other people have got coconut flavors, but the oils in them really mess you up. It's hard to do.
I get more of the coconut on the nose, ironically, than tasting it, which usually it's harder the other way around. But maybe the flavor of the pineapple and the honey is masking the flavor of the coconut. But I do get coconut aromatics, so it's good. I mean, I haven't had many, if any, pina coladas, but I mean this tastes pretty darn good.
Thank you, Steve. Did you end up opening that hopped mead?
Not yet. I'm getting ready to. I was going to comment on the 3 that we've already had, and just say that. It's clear that they've all been brewed by the same mazer. So they share a lot in common. You could just tell they've come from the same brew house or mead house. As they've warmed a little bit, the blueberry really holds up very well. The cucumber, not so much as it's gotten hot. So in other words, it's basically at room temperature at this point. But the other two, who are both about room temp, they've really held up well. And I think of the 3 that we did, the apple, the blueberry, and the cucumber, all 3 are very good meads, and I'd be proud to have said that I brewed any one of them. The blueberry is my favorite. I really like that a lot. You captured the berry well, and in both actually all 3 of them, there's that little bit of residual honey sweetness that you just kind of have on the tip of your tongue or on your lips a little bit. It's just like, there's the honey right at the end, and it's really nice. So these are very nice session meads, and congratulations, because all 3 are very, very good. And now I'm going to open the hop mead. So tell me about this mead.
Well, first, I'm gonna give my feedback since you did the roundup. I'm leaning toward the apple cinnamon, and maybe it's because it makes me nostalgic for Apple Jacks. I haven't had Apple Jacks in a long time, but in a good way. It's that fresh apple character and then the fresh cinnamon character. I kind of agree, although I'm not as down on the cucumber at room temperature as you are, but I do the room temperature, a little bit of astringency is coming out that I didn't get on when it was colder, but it's meant to be drunk cold. And
yeah, exactly. So again, I didn't really mean that as a diss on it, and I know it came out that way. It was just that the apple cinnamon and the blueberry, I also think, are just a tad sweeter, and so that sweetness stays with you a little bit longer. There's a little, they finish a little longer. The cucumber finishes a little quicker. It shuts off, and the flavor of it just goes away more quickly. I think it has a small, it's a little bit savory. There's a little savoriness to the cucumber, in which you would expect, and it's really nice. It's not expected, and it's beautiful.
Steve, have you got the hopped mead?
Yeah, it's very good. What kind of hops are in it?
So on that label, I'm curious, is there any, does it say CB? Because I make a bunch of these now, and I'm a little bit, I don't know which one I sent you at this point. Just like that. Okay, so I think let's see, I got to go back to my.
It doesn't say CV. It just says hopped mead, 5% ABV. That's it.
That might be. No, that's not that one.
Steve, we've done so many hop samplers. You should be able to just pick that out.
Well, I was going to say it tastes like a New World hop.
It is. So I think it's Cashmere and Pacific Jade. If I'm looking at my.
That's the exact 2 I was going to pick.
Whoa!
You just didn't give him enough
amazing.
time.
Yeah, you just didn't give me enough time to
Put
say
you
it.
off. Sorry.
But they are definitely, they have that kind of over the top new world hop thing going for them. And sure enough, they are, even though they're like New Zealand or Australia. I don't know where they come from, but
Yeah.
but not noble hops from Europe. And I could at least tell that. And otherwise, the mead's very nice. I've had some hop meads before. This one's as good as any that I've had. Again, all your meads are very clean. Your fermentation process and how you treat the product, you can tell you treat it with care and with consideration, because none of these have anything weird going on in them. There's no defects. There's no weird hop character. I mean yeast character.
So Garrett, talk about how did you get the hop flavor into that mead?
Yeah.
So I did on this one. I'm assuming that this is this one. I did some boiling. I boiled half ounce cashmere hops. This is for a 5-gallon batch. Half an ounce of cashmere hops and half an ounce of Pacific Jade for 20 minutes.
Just in water, or
just
interesting.
in regular water, and then I did a dry hop for I think like 3 or 4 days. After that, I used citrus blossom honey, Kavai Kavaks, speaking of those, and fermented hot, and did the dry hopping thing, then stabilized and back sweetened. With
very good.
Honey.
Wow. I'm envious. I mean, I'm enjoying the pina colada mead, but and I gave Steve the choice. I was like, which one? And he picked the hopped one. So, wow.
Well, I enjoy getting to try those things. Like, hops are so fun, and that's one thing. I'm a little jealous of you, Steve, and your experience with hops, because in my beer, the fear of mashing that I'm going through now is only fixed by the excitement for all the hops I can use. There's so many hop profiles, and you walk into a brew store and you're like, especially for hopped mead, I'm looking at the giant sheet and going, oh, this one has this and this and this, and it's just so cool to mix and match. It's a giant sandbox that seems.
Oh yeah.
Well, Garrett, can I give you a hint or a tip? My wife Susan and I, we bottled 3 small batches today, 3 6-packs, for the next hop sampler, which will be hop sampler number 21, Steve, the next time when this bottle conditions.
Old enough to drink.
That's right. But this is the procedure that I do for the hop samplers. I take 3 quarts of water, filtered water, obviously, and then I warm that up, and into that 3 quarts of water, I put 1 pound or 450 grams of Pilsen Light dry malt extract, and you can buy that from your homebrew store. They have the 1 pound bags. So you put that into the water, you stir it up, and just as it gets up to boiling, it starts to bubble, it starts to boil, you shut off the heat, and then you add hops. And in this case, in one batch, I added 1 ounce or 28 grams of Nectaron. In another batch, I added 23 grams of Idaho 7, and I weighted these for the alpha acid percentage so that they would all 3 be sort of the same. And then in the third batch, I put 13 grams of Vic Secret, which is 21.5% alpha acid. Woo.
Oh, wow.
So you just, once you get that wort with the extract just up to the boil, you shut off the heat, you add your hops, and then you set it aside for 10 minutes to do a 10-minute hop stand, and then you chill it in an ice bath. And so once it's chilled in the ice bath to pitching temperature, you rack it into your jug, your 1-gallon jug, and then you pitch yeast. In this case, I used in each of these batches 3 grams of USO5, Saf-Ale USO5, which is the California ale yeast. And, 1 packet of that is like 11.5 grams.
Yeah.
Then you let it ferment, and then you siphon off into we went straight into the bottles with we get the little mini auto siphon. And then we primed each bottle with a carbonation drop. They look like the little hard candies.
Yeah.
And then, so that's each one of those pounds of, each pound of malt extract yields a 6-pack of beer. It started out at 1066. So did the Battle of Hastings. And it, and it ended up at 1009 for an ABV of 7.5%. So, pretty big beer. But they're substantially hoppy, and I'm looking forward to comparing, Steve, to sharing these with you and comparing these, because it's going to be a fun batch. And we've done like 20 more of these, and that is a really easy way, because each 6-pack is like an hour to brew, because you're just bringing like 3 quarts of water up to the boil, resting it for 10 minutes, and then chilling it. And you can chill down, a gallon of, or little less than a gallon of wort in an ice bath, in like 10, 15,
15 minutes.
Yeah. And so that's a really, you don't need to boil extract, because it's all grain wort that has been boiled and has had most of, if not all, the water taken out of it. So it's, all the things that you need to do to boil wort, it's been done. And just doing the hop stand for 10 minutes, at that boiling temperature, you really get a lot of those fresh, aromatic and flavorful hop compounds. And we found that it's a really fun way to get some really delicious hoppiness out of a really simple process. And just, the beers are really, some of the beers are really good.
Some of them are killer good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them not so much, but mostly they're really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's fun.
That's your tip for the day.
Yeah. I need to try that at some point, because the world of hops is so fun. And I feel like, well, with mead especially, you then have your other side of like honey. What kind of honey am I going to use? And that could be its own, like, a whole other thing. All the thousands of kinds of honey in the world. I mean, I've bought hundreds of pounds of honey and everything I can find, and I still have only scratched the surface of, like, because every year is different. It's a whole wormhole of what's going on there. So I appreciate you guys doing some tasting and helping me out and being part of this podcast. And I love getting to chat with people who have done. You guys are way more experienced than me, and I felt a little intimidated, because you guys have had years more experience of, like, just getting to talk and try new things. So it's been kind of fun.
Well, we learn from everybody we talk to. I still don't feel like an expert, even though I've been doing this for a long time. And I learn so much every time I talk to somebody else. And we've learned tonight. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, Garrett. And we hope that I hope that you continue on with what you're doing. You're doing great work. Keep it up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Garrett for having us on his show and for allowing me to put together this preview of his interview. And again, that's on the Made Mead channel on YouTube. Garrett says we'll be able to see his more complete interview in a couple of weeks. Lots of fun. Steve and I talk more about, our background in brewing and in podcasting and, kind of our philosophy on different things. So, of course, thanks to Steve Wilkes for joining in on the fun. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.